edition of the Collingwood Magpies Big Footy podcast. I am the Mighty T, and joining me tonight we have three very special guests. First of all, pulling double duty tonight, he's been over on the port board. We've got HotPiesWithSauce. How you doing, HotPies?
Yeah, not too bad. Thanks for having me again. And I was just on the Port podcast and probably, gained more bruises from that than our team did against North on the weekend.
I'd like to think you've showered before coming onto the podcast with us, or I wouldn't want to catch anything.
I've scrubbed myself very strongly, so I should be okay.
Brilliant. And joining us again this week, we have Will. How you doing, Will?
Yeah, good, mate. How are you?
Not too bad. Just, just much like Hot Pie said, having a bruise-free week, just like the club did. So it's been okay. And our resident Big Footy recorder, analyst, and soon-to-be goal-kicking game champion, Magpie Girl, joins us again this week. How you doing, Magpie Girl?
Hi, Mighty T.
How did you enjoy the weekend's game, Magpie Girl? I know you went down there.
I did. I loved it. It was a beautiful, beautiful spring afternoon in Melbourne, and it was there's a decent crowd there. And it was a funny game, but at the same time it was enjoyable, and just given the fact that it was probably the last game that I'll go to this year, I don't think I'll get any tickets for the finals, but it was good, really good.
There's still a fair few left over. I actually booked mine today, so if you're interested in getting down on Saturday night, I have a feeling there'll be a few available. But it was good. It must have been good for you to get down and get to the G and enjoy the Sunday afternoon game. Will, what did you think of the weekend's performance? Was it? We've already covered bruise free, but how did you see the loss?
I suppose I didn't really think much of it. There were a few things I was more concerned with the game, like Didac and Beams, how they'd fare. That was pretty much all I was interested in. Whether it was a win, loss or draw, I didn't mind. I just wanted to see how our players would go. And I think we did okay without being excellent. Didac was actually quite good. And that's all I sort of saw it as.
It was like a little bit of an extended training run, wasn't it? We managed to get the skills right, stretch the legs out and get some more of those cobwebs out of Didac's legs. Hot Pies with Sauce. Did you end up watching the game on the weekend, and what were your thoughts?
I did watch the game. My thoughts, I thought it was the most professional game of touch footy I've ever seen. I think at one stage a player got tackled and the umpire called a contact foul. But this didn't really bother me. We had nothing to gain by going in too hard, getting some injuries that would cost us in the finals, though we did still see Brownie subbed off with what looked like a minor knee injury.
Yep.
But I haven't heard too much about that, so hopefully it was just a cautious sort of thing. But on a positive side, I thought we only played to about 80% capacity and still ended up in a pretty close game. So what is probably the best team outside of the 8 in the Kangaroos. So, I'm pretty optimistic about next week when we actually turn up to play.
Were you disappointed that Cloak didn't get his hands on the Coleman at the end of the day?
I don't think he actually deserved it. I would love to see him get the Coleman, don't get me wrong.
Yep.
But you've got to kick some of those goals there. He's so close. We're playing him really close to goals now. He's got to convert, and if he's not going to do that, I think he's having probably his most inaccurate season ever. It's just great that he's getting so much of the ball, and that's why he got so close to the Coleman. Mm-hmm. But we really need him to, get his accuracy up for the finals.
Yeah, well, I mean, Will, what are your thoughts on that? I think he's ended up having 16 kicks more than the next closest person in the competition, and that's not even counting out of bounds on the full.
He had every opportunity to get the Coleman, and he could have easily got 3 other goals on the weekend. There were 3 that were absolute sitters, that like a good player, like a good full forward, more accurate sort of, like Roughhead would have got. He just had every opportunity, and he's only got himself to blame. So I'm with Hot Pies, and he didn't deserve it at all. Because if he he was to deserve it, he would have got it because he had more opportunity than any other forward in the competition, and he stuffed it up. So yeah.
Well, it's very true. I think he should have had it sealed up a few weeks ago, and we've started on a slightly downward note. We're going to continue in that way for now, as our VFL season came to a close on Saturday afternoon, and what I have to say was a disappointing result. I know that you gentlemen weren't able to watch the game, or yourself, Magpie Girl, but it was probably one of the most poorly umpired games of football I've ever seen. But regardless, you can't count on the umpires to win a game. And despite the fact the Pies fought very well all day, we just weren't able to get across the line. Our best players from the AFL list included Martin, Yagmore, Frost and Mooney. Out of the VFL guys, out of the VFL players from this weekend, is there anyone that you can see potentially coming back into the side, HotPiesWithSauce?
I'm not entirely certain who actually played. I know that Kyle Martin's a really good player, but and he whenever he comes in, he gets a lot of the ball and he doesn't seem to be overawed. If we do have a problem with, say, if Luke Ball can't get up or a player like that, it's a possibility that Kyle Martin could come straight in.
Mm. Well, look, he's probably been our most consistent player in the VFL. It's just too bad he hasn't played a few more games. I guess the other concern, coming off the weekend's result against North Melbourne, we touched briefly on the injury to Nathan Brown. We haven't seen Jack Frost in the AFL side since round 2 or 3, I believe. Will, do you think that if Nathan Brown can't come up, do you think that we should be looking at bringing young Frost in, or should we turn and push Reid back into defence to try and plug that hole?
Bring Frost back in, because I think Reid has been one of the moves of the season. It has freed up Cloak, and Petey is actually converting, and it's fantastic to see. So I wouldn't put him back unless absolutely necessary. But yeah, definitely keep him up forward because it's worked wonders. And I think him having been brought forward has really changed our fortunes in the last 5 or 6 weeks, ever since the Carlton game, I believe. So yeah, keep him up forward, bring Frost in.
I think he's been one of our most important players. I've made that point known across the board, and I also think that if there was a swingman role in the All-Australian team, he'd have to be getting close to it. As we know, the squad was announced today. We have 3 All-Australian Magpie players in our All-Australian squad for this year. Travis Cloak, Dane Swan and Scott Pendlebury. HotPiesWithSauce, are these worthy selections in your opinion?
Yeah, there were no real surprises there, in my opinion. Swan, Pendles and Cloak, they deserve to be in the squad. They should also be in the final team. They have been each very consistent this year. Pendles has added another dimension to his game in terms of defensive pressure. Clokey, well, he only missed the Coleman medal by a B's old fella in what was probably, was his most inaccurate season ever by far. And, Swan, he's just been his usual brilliant self, especially in the latter half of the year. I think they're extremely deserving. Other than those 3, I would only say maybe Ball and O'Brien could have possibly made the squad, but they've probably missed a few too many games, so it's understandable that they might miss out.
What about you, Will? Do you think they're worthy additions to the squad? And do you think anyone was hard done by from a Collingwood perspective?
What, like for Collingwood players hard done by, you mean?
Yeah, is it in the Collingwood perspective? Yeah.
I think all 3 of them deserve it. Fantastic. It's good. It's great to see Pendles just out there dominating like usual, and it's like he's like in slow motion. Like he just doesn't get tackled. He just moves. It's fantastic to watch him play. And Swan, another good year. Cloak, I definitely have him in there. He's definitely, regardless of whether he's inaccurate or not, his market is pretty much second to none. And he could be put in any side and he'll just dominate. He's that good. I mean, he's fantastic.
In terms of who I think has been a little bit unlucky from a Collingwood point of view, Nathan Brown has been incredibly solid this year. And considering the fullbacks who they've picked in Eric McKenzie from West Coast, I believe, and it might have even been no, Glass wasn't big. But I personally think that Nathan Brown has been one of the better fullbacks in the competition. How have you rated his season, Will?
I think you asked this last week. I think he's okay.
Yeah,
he makes a little bit of errors now and then. Yep. I think he could be up there, but I think there's probably better in the competition. He is very serviceable down back, though, and he is probably one of the better backmen that we've got. Probably behind Heath Shaw, I'd say.
Yep.
He's probably the second best backman we've got in our side at the moment. So I'd probably put Heath Shaw above him, to be honest. But, yeah, he's up there.
Yeah, it's certainly a very good call. And I think whenever it comes to determining these squads, there is such a great degree of difficulty in picking who the best and judging everyone objectively. So it's certainly an unenviable job. But, yeah, I mean, I'm pretty happy to see 3 Collingwood players once again grace the All-Australian side, especially from outside the top 4. And more importantly, there's no Carlton players there at all. So it's good news for us.
That is great, yes.
Well, we turn our attention to our own game, Saturday night, a big clash. An odd twist of fate has brought these two teams together only 363 days ago. The world was made aware of the passing of John McCarthy, who obviously played a handful of games for Collingwood and a full season for Port Adelaide. And as I said, in an odd coincidence, these two teams come together nearly a year after that day to contest a final. And who would have thought it? The last time we played Port Adelaide, it was a fairly big clash in round 14 at Amy Stadium in Adelaide, and a game that we really shouldn't have lost, but we weren't expected to lose, let's put it that way, but we came up on the short end of it. Hot Pies, you were I believe you were in attendance that week. How did you see that game, and where have we improved since then?
Unfortunately, I was at that game. I've tried to block it from my memory. I've been unsuccessful so far. That was horrific. And I went with a lot of Port Power supporters.
Yep.
And didn't they let me have it after the game? It was probably the worst I've ever seen us play live. They just dominated us from the start. They dominated us in clearances, in uncontested ball, in contested ball. I just kept expecting us to do that typical sort of Collingwood thing when we just all of a sudden just change gear and just come out strong and start dominating the game or taking it back. But it never happened, and they won every single quarter. And after that game, I was really starting to consider our sort of chances for the rest of the year. Luckily, we've turned it around since then, and we're now looking like a completely different team. Where they won it was they just had more run off of half back than we did through Hamish Hartlett and players like that. Definitely the clearances. I think they dominated us in the clearances. I think we had Hudson playing that week, and I thought he played pretty well, but I'm definitely looking forward to having Grundy in his position this week.
You're certainly right about on every point there. It was probably the most difficult game that I've watched this year. It was almost like it was a lack of endeavour, and that you're right. You did expect us to turn around and get over the line, but that surge never came. Will, did you end up watching that last game, and how have you rated our performances since then?
I didn't actually watch the last game. I was following it on my phone on a bus in London.
Of course.
I was trying to control my frustration on the bus. It's varying degrees of success. I was just looking and I couldn't actually believe it. Port just wanted it all. It's pretty much as simple as that. And we played like rubbish.
Yeah.
As for how we've improved, well, I don't know, probably several key areas. Probably our ruck with the inclusion of Grundy. The Keith back and having Reid forward has definitely helped.
Yep.
probably Beam's back. Ball played well. Harry O'Brien played well. It's just a compliment. We've just played as a team now, and we're seeing glimpses of what we're like at our best. Sam Dwyer just dominating. It's just a combination of everything. I think that Bucks has been trying to work for. We can see, like in games like Sydney and in probably Carlton when we came back, we can see what he wants to do, and that's what we're like when we're playing very, very, very well.
If Quinton Lynch isn't available for selection, what is our plan B, Will? Who do we turn to? Who do we bring into the side? And what role do they play?
Darren Jolly, bring him back. Because obviously in latter parts of the game, Brody Grundy looks really tired. I'd probably bring in Jolly to sort of be a stabilising force, probably put Grundy up forward or down back wherever needed. And when Brody Grundy's in the ruck, put Jolly forward because he can play forward. I've said, like, grand final past, he was kicking some goals. That's probably who I'd bring in. Because our ruck seems to be our weakest point, like, in the last however many years. So probably bring in Jolly, because this is the strongest I've seen our ruck in years.
Yep. Hot Pies, would you bring in Jolly regardless of whether Lynch is fit or not? I mean, is Jolly Grundy going to be our best combination?
Yeah, it's been my opinion that I've wanted Jolly in the forward line for most of this season, probably all of this season and a bit of last season as well. I think he's a really good forward line prospect. Whenever he's really good contested mark, he's a brilliant kick for goal.
Yep.
And he's got that sort of he's a much better ruckman than Lynch. So I don't see any sort of downside with having Jolly in the forward line. Just on Grundy again, it's I'm really liking Grundy, but as I mentioned before on another podcast, my girlfriend's sort of, her interest in him is bordering on dangerous obsession right now. Seriously. If he gets a sleeve or something like that, because she really likes tattoos, then there is an actual dangerous chance that she might jump the fence at the next time she sees him live and just take him right there on the field. So, yeah.
Well, you are going to have to be on your toes.
Oh, yeah.
Who hasn't thought about that amongst us? I mean, come on, it's just, it's.
I can't say I have.
But no, look, I think you make a very good point. It's fascinating because I think that you're right. If you could plant Darren Jolly in the goal scorer inside 50, Travis Cloke does great work, we know, working up the ground. He's a cardiovascular machine. Ben Reid has excellent disposal, so he could roam the top of the 50 arc and deliver the ball in really nicely. I think it's a formula that could work, and it's a shame we haven't had the opportunity to try it yet. And that makes me have reservations on whether Nathan will try it in the first final. I think he's likely to stick to the scenario that he knows best. I can almost see Hudson coming in as opposed to Jolly, but look, it will be an interesting equation no matter which way it goes. The short of it, how are we going to win this weekend against Port Adelaide? What are we going to do right that they just can't do, Will?
We're going to have to win it in the midfield. We've got a better midfield than them. Now, delivery into the forward line is going to be spot on, and I think if we're going to win, Cloak is going to be accurate, Ben Reid's going to be accurate. I said it in a thread before, this is a really winnable game for us. This is really winnable based on our form and based on our team that we've got going into the game, or that we're most likely going to have anyway. We'll need our key players to stand up where it counts, and we're just going to have to want it more. And I think we will. And we've got more experience in the last few years than Port Adelaide have got, so that'll keep us in good stead. So that's, I think, probably just the delivery and everything, because our delivery's been shocking at times into the forward line. That's pretty much how we're going to win it, I think. Just,
Yeah, no, good points all around. Hot Pies, what are your thoughts? Is this the game that is this our game to lose essentially?
I think it is. I think our major advantage here which should be the deciding advantage, is we have so much more experience in finals than Port do. I think Port's last finals was in 2007 when they got thrashed in the grand final. Mm-hmm. And in their list, they've only got about 40 or 50 finals games experience in the whole list, while we've got hundreds.
Yeah.
Because we've just been in the finals since 2007. Plus, they've got a really young team. They've got the third youngest team other than GWS and Gold Coast at the moment. So they've got a very inexperienced young team that's going to come up against, a very finals hardened team in front of 90 to 100,000 people, hopefully. Yep. When, on the weekend they had 40,000 people at AAMI Stadium and they were like, oh, wow, that's a huge crowd. Mm. They think that's a huge crowd. Wait until you see one of our crowds and you hear this Collingwood chant ringing in your ears. I hope that they just go out there and they're just overawed, and we sense that from the get-go and just hit them hard and, just they don't know what hit them.
I love the passion. I love it. You can feel it. I can't wait till Saturday. I'm actually all riled up now. Thank you, Hot Pies.
You're welcome.
But no. All right. Let's now move it on to our quick questions, and I'm going to throw the first one at you, Hot Pies. Should Collingwood consider Gary Ayres as its next director of coaching now that Rodney Eade has taken over the MC role of Jeff Walsh as director of football?
Well, to be honest, I don't really know what a director of coaching does.
I don't think anyone does.
Yeah, I just kind of picture it as the guy that the coaches call when they're taking a sickie.
Yep.
Yeah, Edie, I'm feeling a bit crook. I don't think I can come in today. Bucks, this is the third time in 2 weeks you've called in sick. It's just not on, for God's sake. And I can hear seagulls in the background. Are you at the beach or something? I just suppose if we really need a director of coaching, Ayres probably wouldn't be the worst choice. He's been a senior coach for like 20 years. He's got truckloads of experience. And if he can take us to an undefeated season like he did for Port Melbourne, well, I would have his babies. I don't care if I'm a guy. I would figure it out somehow.
You'd make it work.
Yeah.
No, that's fair enough. Magpie Girl, is Sam Dwyer our recruit of the year?
That's a tough one. I am a Sam Dwyer fan, as you can tell from my avatar. Mm-hmm. And I think he's been a tremendous addition to the team this year. I think it'll be pretty sad if he misses out on a place in the finals.
Yep.
People sort of say he fades in and out and all of that, but he does have that. He brings a spark. He's not quite as flashy as Seedsman, but he's capable of just seeing an opening and getting in there. And but I don't know if you'd say he's the recruit of the year. I don't know who is the recruit of the year. They're all on a bit of a par really for their different skills.
Yeah, it's a good point. Sam Dwyer does have a little bit of tenacity. I don't think anyone expected this much of him coming out of the start of the year, especially as a rookie-listed VFL player. HotPiesWithSauce, does Jamie Elliott come back into the side if fit?
I think he definitely comes back into the side. He's probably the best X factor we've got. He can do it on the ground. He's brilliant in the air. He's got a great set shot. He can kick the speckies, the snaps. He's definitely got to come back in, and we've got to fill our tattoo quota, so he has to come back in.
What are your thoughts on that, Magpie Girl? I know you like Jamie Elliott.
I think he's earned his spot in the team, and I would certainly replace Kennedy with him. Yep. I think he's got a marking ability that is quite unique and pretty special in the team overall. And, people compare him with Didac, and I don't really think they're comparable players. Elliott is a big mark and he's quite a good goal kicker, whereas Didac reads the play in a totally different and unique way and, has his own set of skills.
Yeah, very good call. He's more of a slightly shorter Paul Medhurst, but without the little coming ability. But he's a great player, Jamie. I love watching him go about it. But it certainly proves to be an interesting game. Certainly shaping to be an interesting game this weekend against Port Adelaide. As I said before, I think there are still some tickets available. So if you can make your way down, do yourselves a favour and come watch hopefully a pretty decisive Collingwood win. Magpie Girl, I'd like to thank you for joining us again this evening. You're always good company.
Thanks, Mighty T. It's always a pleasure.
Will, lovely to have you on board and contributing as always.
No worries, mate. Good to be here.
Hot Pies, thank you for sticking around. I know you've had the double duty tonight, so it's great to have you aboard again.
No worries, thank you, and hopefully we can give Port a repeat of their 2007 Grand Final.
Hopefully so. And irrespective of what happens this week, we'll still be following up the podcast next week. Whether it's with a win, we'll be coming on and having a discussion about our next opponent, or a loss. We'll probably do a review of the season as a whole. But keep tuning in, keep asking to contribute, and we'll keep putting on a semi-professional show in any case. I'm the Mighty T, and I'm signing out. So this evening we have, it must be a glutton for punishment because we had him on earlier in the year and he's happy to grace with his presence again. Enviable Tradition from the Port Adelaide board. How you doing, ET?
Yeah, good, mate. I mean, I really just came back to gloat because, obviously we won after I was on last time, so I thought I'd come back and just kind of rub it in a bit.
I was going to say that might have been a little bit of a good luck charm for you. We had you on, and back then we were talking about the much improved Port Adelaide side, and they're no longer the potential side anymore, are they?
Well, I think they're still a bit of both, to be honest. I mean, they've still got a way to go in terms of becoming a genuine premiership contender, but certainly compared to where they were 12 months ago, you've got to be pretty happy as a Port fan in terms of the turnaround and the way they're progressing. There's certainly been a lot of players that have taken that next step up, which is pretty exciting for us as a team.
Any of those players in particular that you'd like to single out for their efforts this year? I mean, we've got two that have made the All-Australian squad, and Travis Boak and Chad Wingard. Who else has been most impressive?
Wingard's probably been one of the biggest ones. I mean, in terms of, he showed a lot last year. You could see he was going to be a good player, but, to be able to take it to that next level so quickly and to become such a clutch player who does such good things in such big games and big scenarios is pretty amazing for such a young guy. And so, I think he's the kind of guy who, with the final coming up, he's the kind of guy who just thrives on that pressure and loves those big games. So it's going to be really excited to see what he can do this week. In terms of the other young improving players, probably one of the biggest ones has been a guy called Cam O'Shea, who's sort of mid-size running defender. He's quite tall actually, but plays as a mid-size running defender. And, he copped a lot of flack from the Port fans last year. Like they were getting stuck into him left, right and centre. And he's developed into a very reliable, very handy player this year. And so he's probably the other one that stands out in terms of, someone who's really come on in leaps and bounds. And I guess the final one, obviously, is Ollie Wines, coming off of, a first season after being drafted, and to be able to slot into the midfield like he has and win the hard ball and just perform in the way he has, right in the guts, in the thick of it, has been amazing for a first year player. So he's obviously the other one who's come in and made a big difference to our club too.
There's two players I remember talking to you about last time round that I regard as the barometers of Port. One is Matty Broadbent, and the other is Hamish Hartlett. Hamish has had a bit of a... I don't like to use the word indifferent because he's had some really good games, but he's also been really quiet in some. How do you see those two positioned, and how do you see them influencing this weekend's game?
Yeah, I think Hartlett he's such a key to these sort of games, and I think the key with Hartlett is, he's still working to get through those hard tags, and so when he does get those hard tags, he can battle a little bit still. I think he's slowly getting better at that. But he's the kind of player that if you do let him off the chain, even just for a short period of time, he's lethal. Like his leg and his disposal and his goal kicking really means that he can have a 15 or 20 possession game and really cut a team apart. So he's a really big one for this week. Obviously had a couple of weeks off with a little rest, and probably pretty harshly done by when you look at some of the others that have happened in recent weeks. But he'll be hopefully coming back in fresh. He has had issues over the journey with his body, so that freshening up might actually not be a bad thing for Hamish. And so he's a big one, I think, a really important player for the team. I think Broadbent's been one that's sort of snuck under the radar a bit this year. He's been super consistent, playing a little bit more in the back lines, set up a lot of play. He's a beautiful kick of the ball. He's got some good run about him. And, I think he has been a really important player. If I was going to pick the two as the barometer, though, I think probably Hartlett would have been one of them for me, and probably Westhoff's going to be the other one. Similar to Hartlett, he's the sort of player who can drift out of games, although he has been a lot more consistent this year. But he's also the sort of player that when he's on, he's really on, and he can be very, very hard to stop. So hopefully we'll see him playing a little bit more forward than he has been in recent weeks against you guys, and hopefully he can be a bit damaging and get us on the scoreboard.
I've got a few questions from some of the Collingwood favourites that I'd like to throw you, if you're okay with that.
Perfect. Let's go.
Okay. First of all, from 76, what are things like in Adelaide this week with Port making finals and the Crows missing out?
Yeah, weird, because the media in Adelaide, they do love the Crows, and we're kind of like the poor little cousins, and so I think they don't know what to do with themselves this week. They're not sure what to talk about. But I think it's also a bit of a weird scenario because Port have sort of limped into finals in not the best form, off of a few losses in a row. There's been a lot of media about the end of Amy Stadium, the last game played there. There's been a lot of media about the whole SANFL debacle, which you guys probably may not be up with, but the what's happening with the Port team in the SANFL is up in the air at the moment as well. So it's been a bit of an indifferent media at the moment, I think. Maybe as the week goes on and we get towards later in the week, it'll start to pick up and we'll see some more stuff about the game against Collingwood. But at the moment, it seems like they're sort of, distracted with a whole bunch of different stuff and not sure what to write about with their beloved Crows not in the finals.
Oh, well, poor them, isn't it, right?
Yeah.
Bit of a retrospective question from DThomas. Do you still have nightmares from the 2002 2003 final series where we beat you despite finishing on top of the ladder both years?
Yeah, look, it wasn't a great period for us, was it? It's funny as a Port supporter looking back at those because, growing up with particularly with the Maggies, finals were our thing. We were often that team that did that to others. We'd finish second, third, fourth on the ladder and come through and win the flag anyway. And so to have those couple of years where the shoe was on the other foot wasn't particularly enjoyable for us. But I really think, the team we're building now and the coaching structure we've got there now, the team ethos that we're developing, it's starting to shake off a lot of that 02, 03, 07 sort of nightmares that the Port supporters have had. And I think we can see that now that we're building towards something unique and something a bit different. And so I think for many of us, we've sort of finally been able to put some of those nightmares behind us, hopefully.
Hopefully. Look, hopefully for you, not for me. But staying on that idea of club ethos and club culture, 76 also asked, both of our presidents, Eddie Maguire and David Koch, have a high media profile. What's Koshy like as a president? What's he done for the club? And has his profile raised that of the club's?
Yeah, I think he has. I think he's been fantastic as a president. He's, you sort of see him on Sunrise and those sort of things, and you think, this guy's a bit of a goofball. I'm not sure if he's going to be any good as a president. But, obviously he's got a background in finance. He knows his stuff. He's a very, very smart cookie. And probably one of the best things he's done as president is make sure he's got the right team around him. He sort of knows what his role is and what bits he needs to do and make sure he gets the right people around him to do the other stuff. And so, the combination of him and then Keith Thomas, obviously the CEO, has been unbelievable. Getting the right coach in, getting the right fitness guy in, they've really got it right from the top down and it's made a massive difference. The other thing Koshy's obviously been able to do is get the Port brand exposed to a national audience, which we've really lacked over the last probably decade. And so, he's really been able to get our name out there, get some sponsors on board, get us into, all of the, AFL 360 and, all those different shows, get a lot of exposure for the Port brand. And so from that perspective, I think he's just been fantastic. And he's a real Port man. He's a real dyed-in-the-wool Port supporter from way back, and it's great to see. It shows.
No, that's absolutely. I think he's done a great job for the club. I think he's been a really great personality and a great addition. What do you think of the whole jumper issue between the two clubs? Is it an issue? Yeah.
I don't think it's an issue. I think you should just let us wear our prison bars jumper whenever we want and get over it.
Hey, listen, we were here for. We were in the AFL first. Let's be clear. Okay? Yield to your more attractive.
I think at the end of the day, what I would say is that the Prison Bars is a great jumper. It's a jumper that's absolutely loved by all the Port faithful. It's a jumper that means a lot to us, means a lot to our club, and I think that wearing it against Collingwood, I don't think that'd be a very sensible idea. But having it as a regular, perhaps once or twice off a season, perhaps wearing it in a showdown or something like that, I think would be a pretty logical conclusion. I think it'd be great for our team. It'd be a great marketing aspect. I don't think it's going to diminish in any way from the Collingwood brand. And so I think it just makes sense as a once or twice a year on a special occasion, a big game. You pull it out, you pay respect to your history, and then you move on with the power brand we're developing.
Oh, absolutely. I didn't think it helped you over the weekend, though, and certainly didn't help with watching the game either.
No, it was a bad clash, wasn't it? It was whoever came up with those two, that jumper combination, wasn't doing very well, and I think they've already admitted that in the media. So it wasn't a good. It was a bad clash.
The last question from me before I allow you to fire some back at me if you'd like. Who's going to take out your best and fairest this year? Will it come from Wingard and Boak, or is there a dark horse somewhere there?
Yeah, no, I think it's definitely Wingard and Boak, and I think Boakey will probably win it reasonably comfortably, actually, I think, in the end. I think Wingard's probably done a few more of the flashy things this year and, as I said, stepped up in some of the big occasions. But, as we all know, the best and fairest tend to reward that real consistent player who puts in every single week. And Boakey really has done that. He's led from the front this year, and I'd be very surprised if he doesn't win the BNF. And I think he'll probably actually poll quite well in the Brownlow.
I think you're right. I think he's had a very good season. Do you have anything that you'd like to have a chat to me about?
I thought it'd be worthwhile just asking you guys, what you're thinking about the game ahead, I guess. So I think I said this earlier on when I was on the podcast last time, is that I'm finding you guys a bit of a hard team to read. At your best, you seem like you're sort of right up there in the top four and, finals contender. And then, to have you finish sixth and sort of, limp into the finals, well, not limp in, but, not finish where you perhaps would have expected at the start of the year. You guys have been a bit of a hard team to read, I guess, from an outsider. So, what are your thoughts on the season you've had and what are you expecting this weekend?
Look, where I think Port Adelaide have been the most improved team this year, I think that Collingwood has had, with the exception of West Coast, we've had the highest expectations that we haven't been able to meet. We're going to make finals. We finished top six. But, we realistically saw ourselves as a top four side, and that hasn't been met. You're completely correct with our inconsistency. I think up until probably around 16, we were the most inconsistent side in the competition, and we were never stringing 4 quarters of football together. The game against Port, we didn't have a chance to have a chat about it after, but the Port outworked Collingwood that day. They wanted the ball more. They worked harder for it. Kept us to one of our lowest scores of the year in a brilliant defensive effort. And what was symptomatic of Collingwood back then was we threw up the white flag in the last quarter and said, right, well, we've had enough, we're going home. And I think that was our attitude up until the Gold Coast game. We suffered a loss there that, we probably couldn't even explain. I think that the club would have looked at itself then and said, well, why did we lose to this team? Well, we just aren't working hard enough. We're not doing enough. And since then, I think we've been a more complete side. I think we've worked harder at the ball. We've taken a couple of decent scalps. And I think in general we've played better football. I think we're coming in to this final series with a little bit of momentum. I forget about the weekend result. We laid 38 tackles for the game, which is about 20 less than our season average. So it was bruise-free football for us. I'm looking forward to this game to see. I want to see the endeavour there that Port Adelaide showed against us the last time we played. That hunger and that hunt for the ball. I want to see that from Collingwood, that hunger that we've shown in the last 6 weeks. So we have been inconsistent, but I think we've vastly improved from where we started from, or from when we last played.
And so, who do you think will be the keys for Collingwood if they're going to win on the weekend?
Look, the big three, the All Australian boys, Swan, Pendlebury, and Cloak, are obviously the ones that you always look at. My rule of thumb is if Heath Shaw plays a good game, gets over his 28 touches and is allowed to control that back half, then we're probably going to control the game. He's our barometer. We talked about Hamish Hartlett and the big man Wingard. as the barometer for Port. Heath Shaw is certainly Collingwood's quarterback. He sets up our play, and if he's getting a lot of the ball, then I think we're doing well. But look, I mean, aside from that, some of the kids have really shown a lot. Paul Searsman, who I think was our best on against Port last time, really cut you guys up. Josh Thomas has improved. But look, I think if you want to look at the focal points, it'll probably be Heath Shaw, the two big midfielders in Pendlebury and Swan, and the two forwards in Travis Cloke and Ben Reid, who kicked 10 between them against North in what was a free-flowing game. But still, it's two big guys that Port need to control, and I'm not sure if, and this is outsider's perspective, I don't know if the Port tall defenders are going to be able to control both those big guys.
Yeah, well, I think we have struggled at times against a couple of really tall defenders. We've got obviously Jack Trengove back there, but our other defenders tend to be that little bit shorter, as I know we mentioned on our podcast as well. And so sometimes those real big talls can get around us. Although with that more team defence happening nowadays, that's not as much of an issue. I think the big issue for us is going to be controlling those gun midfielders that you guys have got. Yep. And I think that'll if we can manage to break even with those guys, then I think we'll give ourselves a chance. And I think conversely for us, I think it's going to be our big sort of key players that are going to be the key for us. Your likes of your Hartlett, Wingard, Boak, Ebert. I think Schultz is going to be a really important player for us. He's been playing a little bit further away from goal, and Westhoff similarly. Both have been sort of getting dragged away from the goals. And we're really going to need those two to get in a bit closer to goal and to kick some goals for us this week if we're going to give it a shot in the finals. And as I said before, I think the biggest one for us is probably the intensity. It's we're a young side. We have looked like we've been a bit off the mark in the last couple of weeks. So it's it's whether we're able to lift again for the finals or whether we've just sort of drained our tank a little bit too much will probably be the big key for us. I think if we can bring that 100% intensity to the whole game, shut down those big guys, then it's probably going to be a pretty close game and hopefully a bit of a scrap and a close encounter. But it'll be interesting to see.
Well, look, I'm certainly looking forward to this weekend's game. I think it's weird. Fate plays a funny part in things. I think in the 7th will mark 363 days since John McCarthy's passing. It is an amazing coincidence, amazing twist of fate that the two sides will meet in a final on Saturday night, so close to the anniversary of his passing. And look, I hope both clubs do a little something for him. Maybe the black armbands come out again, but it will be a big occasion, and it's funny how these things turn out, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And once again, I think, what everyone would want then is just a good game, isn't it? Just to be played in the right spirit and everyone have a red hot crack and make it a ripping game. That's what we can all hope for, I think.
Oh, absolutely. I'm certainly looking forward to it. ET, you coming down for the game?
No, I'm going to be watching this one from home, boys. I'm home with the family this weekend, so I'd love to be there, but not this time.
No, well, look, I hope that you enjoy the game. I hope it's a close encounter. I know you've had a busy night, so I will sign off with you for now. But thank you again for coming aboard, and I hope to have a chat with you about the game, and hopefully we've gotten over the line.
Beautiful. Well, thanks for having me on, guys. Go the power, and hopefully the results will be the same as last time I was on.
Best of luck, Enviable Tradition.
See you guys.
Hello, this is Dave Stephen for the Elimination Final week, and you guys have chosen to talk about the umpiring in the two games of the weekend. As you know, on forums, I was very, very frustrated with the umpiring. I'll tell you what, I'm not going to swear because this means nothing, and I probably did that at the footy anyway. So, the thing that frustrated me was first in the VFL game or the same games is that the other team gets calls, but when it happens to our players, we don't get the call. And it's just frustrating. As everyone tells us I yell out, there's two different rules for two different sides. And it annoys the shit out of me. It's just frustrating to see them get, say, holding the ball or dropping the ball. I see our players do the same thing, and we don't get free kicks. The big one, especially in the AFL with Clark, is holding. I see we hold at they'll bet them hold their other team's forwards, we get pinned for holding. But Cloak gets pulled and dragged back everywhere possible. And the dumbass blind humps miss it every single bloody time. Annoys the fucking shit out of me. Another one, in the AFL game, the guy took it on a player. He was tackled after the 3 or 4 steps. He took it on, dropped the ball, and kept the dumbass umpires say, play on, play on. Oh, it's frustrating. Yeah, it makes me very, very angry. Alright, that's my rant, and you've probably how I feel, so hopefully there'll be a semi-final podcast if we win. If not, I'll see you when I see you. Bye.